Welcome to the YMB and BTC podcast, episode 16. Today, we have another special guest with us, Gweedo, the creator of APIcoin.io. The new service aims to provide a secure, powerful API that allows you to get data from the blockchain. We want to know all about that project, so Gweedo is here to explain everything. Before that, we'll chat about an important security issue that was recently announced, the Heartbleed Bug. We'll try to explain how it affects Bitcoin and how you can keep your money safe. Some have suggested that the NSA may have been exploiting this bug or even created it, so we'll discuss those thoughts as well. Your hosts this week are Tim Baker, John Stuart, and myself, Daniel Brown. Here we go. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the YMB and BTC podcast. This will be episode 16. We're recording on Monday, April 14th, and you'll be hearing this for the first time in just a few days. We want to talk about the Heartbleed bug today. It's kind of a big deal. It's a bug that has been affecting quite a bit of the internet. The article I'm looking at now says as much as 2/3. I mean, I'm sure that's just an estimate, but it's really kind of huge, and even the things that you would expect to be the most secure, like banking, security, anything with SSL, a lot of the internet uses SSL, and yeah, anything that you think could be really secure might not be. And I'm looking at a post on the Bitcoin Talk forums right now. The author is APIcoin Doctor. I think it's ACOINDR. I'm assuming he wants it to be a coin doctor or something like that. Anyway, he's got plenty of activity. He's a well-known member. And he wrote a little bit about Edward Snowden and a video that he made talking about how these security issues could possibly be kind of controlled or even intentionally designed by the government. I'll just start reading this then instead of trying to describe it myself. By now, the community is aware of the open SSL Heartbleed vulnerability, one of the biggest flaws in the internet's history, affecting the basic security of as many as 2/3 of the world's websites. Patch implementations for this vulnerability are ongoing and include an advisory now to upgrade to Bitcoin QT/Bitcoin Core. That's something I meant to mention earlier. It did affect Bitcoin, that's why we're talking about it. The Bitcoin 0.9 update came not long ago, a week or two, I suppose, and it was subject to this bug. It's possible that you could lose some private keys or your wallet could be compromised. What I read was that if you ever clicked on a Bitcoin link, like on the internet, or like a payment protocol link, which is a new feature where you can just click on a link, I guess, and it kind of has the entire transaction kind of put together already. And it just makes things more convenient. So all you have to do, instead of remembering the address and the amount and everything, you can just click a link and it should load everything up in your QT and get the transaction already. What I read was that if you used any of those links, then your wallet is compromised. So that's important for everyone to remember. If you did that as soon as possible, you got to update. And also, it's not just that you need to get new software, you need an entirely new wallet because you can't even use the same addresses or anything like that. You have to completely redo it and make sure you don't leave your funds in any of those addresses either. You got to send everything you have to new addresses and start over. Anyway, so yeah, that's a patch that you all need to remember and be aware of. And also, just a quick mention, they did switch it from Bitcoin QT. 0.9 was changed to Bitcoin Core. Something about distinguishing it from other Bitcoin things, I guess. I don't know. Not a huge deal, but something worth remembering. Anyway, so he talks about this video from Ed Snowden, and I'll just read his kind of summary that he puts here. One question asked to Snowden that he kept coming back to was using encryption good defense against abusive, unconstitutional surveillance? And was encryption really effective? He replied matter-of-factly yes, saying the government, instead of trying to brute force through it, probably impossible anyway, would look for other less expensive ways to acquire information, making broad dragnet data collection infeasible. Though targeted acquisition is usually successful, instead of being able to simply sit on the network and scoop up everything, they would need to go to companies like Yahoo, Google, Facebook, etc. for data at encryption endpoints. So basically what that says is that encryption, it's probably not worth trying to brute force encryption. I mean, it's possible, but it's going to take a ton of work and going to be hard to find exactly what you need to. I mean, if you knew exactly what you needed to brute force, maybe you could do it, but if you're just trying to sift through everything and brute force it, not worth it at all. And what he's saying is, well, when you encrypt something, the first party and the last party are the only ones who see it unencrypted. Like, Tim, if I want to send you a message encrypted, which we've done before, I know what the message is, I make the message, and then I encrypt it, and it's encrypted all the way through servers or wherever it goes through. It's encrypted all the way until it gets to you. And what they're saying is they need to get to those parties that see it unencrypted, which in their example, it's like Yahoo, Google, or Facebook. And unfortunately, I don't think we could trust them as much as we wish we could. I mean, I don't think many of them would have any problem at all throwing our data out there and just, if the government asks for it, yeah, sure, he sent all these messages and emails to this person. I have heard that maybe Yahoo is actually going to encrypt things better so that even Yahoo themselves won't be able to see our emails. And therefore, if the government asks Yahoo for the information, Yahoo won't physically be able to provide it, which would be a good thing. Anyway, so yeah, they're saying that you could, or the government is going to go to these giant data hubs who, as much as we hate it, a lot of times they have access to our unencrypted information. He says, then, out of nowhere, this Heartbleed vulnerability comes up. Bloomberg just published a story saying the NSA knew about it and used the Heartbleed bug for 2 years, though the agency denies it. That's huge. Because, yeah, the Heartbleed bug has been out there for a while, and they're saying that the NSA used it for years to get information. And like we said, this affects a huge portion of the internet, and who knows what the NSA has done with this.
I have an article with the NSA with their response. Basically, their response is, no, we didn't do it, and you should listen to us because we're always so trustful in the past. But the article is from phys.org. So it's out. The U.S. National Security Agency on Friday denied a report claiming it was aware of and even exploited the Heartbleed online security flaw to gather critical intelligence. The stern denial came amid growing panic among internet users the world over about the newly exposed flaw, after a report from Bloomberg News said that the spy agency decided to keep quiet about the matter and even used it to scoop up more data, including passwords. And then a quote, NSA was not aware of the recently identified vulnerability in OpenSSL, the so-called Heartbleed vulnerability, until it was made public in a private cybersecurity report, NSA spokeswoman Vanny Vines said in an email. Reports that say otherwise are wrong. Which, I mean, taking that, either they did know about it and they just used it to take our data, and we probably shouldn't listen to anything they ever tell us or anything that really the government ever tells us unless it's backed up by someone else. Or the NSA isn't this wonderful, great group who should be in charge of keeping us all safe and keeping national security if it's the private sector finding these things out. So
yeah, that's a good point. Like, no matter which side is the truth, it doesn't reflect very well on the NSA.
Yeah, you're right, because I don't think we could, or I don't think we should say definitively that the NSA has been exploiting this, because for the most part at this point, it's just one person's word against another person's word, or one agency against another agency. I don't really know if there's any actual evidence out there, but yeah, it's still a huge bug, and I don't know if I mean, I'm not saying I actually want them to take care of me, so I don't really care if they don't do their job other than the fact that I'm paying them. But in general, if they're saying that it's their job to be aware of this kind of stuff and find this kind of stuff, then yeah, they failed at that job. And I mean, I don't think they should have the job in the first place, but they do, and they failed at it. So before we get too much farther, I guess I'm no sort of expert or anything about internet security, but I want to just explain in a really simple way what I understand the Heartbleed bug to be. I'm sure that, like I said, I'm not an expert, and my explanation could be quite flawed, but I don't think it's too important what the exact problem is. Just the fact that, I don't know, your wallet or whatever could be at risk. But I still want to just summarize what I understand it to be. It seems like a while ago they introduced this way. It was kind of like a ping, where you can ping a server or a client or something, and they'll send you a little bit of information back just to say that they're there and that you're connected to them and everything. And what happened was, again, this could be a little bit off, and it's a really simplified version, I'm sure, but I'm just going to say what I understand. It seemed like the problem ultimately was that you could ping a server or whatever and request a certain amount of information from them, but the problem was that somehow people were able to, when they pinged, they could actually request more information than they were supposed to, I guess, and it would, instead of just replying the right way, it would read random, whatever was in memory, whatever was just sitting in memory on your computer or on the server or whatever. It would read past the stop point and just grab a whole bunch of extra data, however much you told it to. If it was in memory, it would grab that data and send it back across the internet. Again, that's not super technical, but basically they could just get more information than they were supposed to. They could pull it out of memory. And I guess it is, in a way, it's kind of random. Like if you're just requesting extra information, you don't really know what you're going to get, but obviously there are ways of figuring it out and of exploiting that and things like that. So I just wanted to throw that out there real quick so we know what Heartbleed kind of is doing. Yeah, this is back to the Bitcoin forum post, and there's a little bit more here about the NSA and the government. He mentioned how the NSA was exploiting it, and then he said, that jogged my memory about something from Snowden's revelations about them intentionally participating in software communities, proposing standards like potentially weak random number generators for encryption, etc. Now, that's another really important idea, is that, again, we can't exactly say that we have proof of this, but it's a really good idea. If the NSA is out to get us, this is definitely a good way of doing it. They could have people involved in all of these projects in the internet. For all we know, they're even undercover. I mean, I think there's enough evidence to say that the following probably isn't true, but if they wanted to, if they were doing this kind of thing, maybe Satoshi Nakamoto was some undercover NSA agent, and they set all this up, and someday down the road they're going to pull some sort of time bomb or something. I don't know, that's kind of excessive, but that's the kind of thing that this is talking about. They could put people out there into all these projects. They could make weak random number generators. They could make, if they knew what they were doing and they had all this planned out, for all we know, they designed the Heartbleed bug just so that they could do all of these things. I don't know, that's kind of an important thought and obviously dangerous, I guess.
The government isn't that great at a lot of things, but they're good at messing with people and killing people and ruining things, so... I'm not even just meaning like ruining things like being incompetent, which they are at that, but also just ruining things for other people. Maybe Bitcoin is a big NSA project. They're going to get all the, what's the word?
Dissenters?
Yeah, dissidents. Thank you, John. Dissidents to put our money in there and then take it all away from us. But I did find something about the Yahoo. It's an article back in January, because all the recent ones are just talking about how Yahoo is one of the things that's been compromised by the Heartbleed bug. This is an article from zdnet.com. So, From today, Yahoo will begin encrypting all email connections by default, offering its users the same additional security that Google rolled out for Gmail in 2010. Yahoo has now enabled Secure Sockets Layer SSL, denoted by HTTPS in browser's URL bar, encryption by default for its roughly 200 million Yahoo Mail users, meeting the 8th of January deadline it announced last October. Change means that Yahoo users no longer need to manually configure their accounts to enable SSL encryption for mail, which encrypts communications between the browser and Yahoo web servers and is meant to ensure to the user the site they're communicating with really is what it claims to be. Then all the articles I looked at, it's Yahoo's one of the biggest ones that was...
Right. Because that's what that SSL that you were just reading about, that's what the bug is in OpenSSL. That's where the Heartbleed Bug is. So that's kind of, that's compromised. And also, maybe I misunderstood. Earlier I was saying that Yahoo would encrypt it such that they couldn't even read it themselves. But I'm not sure if that's actually true, at least not yet. Maybe they were talking about it. But according to that article, it seems like it's only encrypted on the way from Yahoo to your browser. But I don't think that they keep an encrypted version. I think if the government did go to Yahoo and asked for whatever information, I'm pretty sure Yahoo could give it to them.
Yeah,
now,
that's what it sounded like.
I could be wrong,
before,
but so yeah, that's something that we really need to be looking for is, I guess, encrypted email and social media outlets, things like that, which also, Tim, maybe that liberty.me, I don't know if it actually is going to be like that, but that would be something they should definitely consider, is making it encrypted such that they themselves couldn't even. I don't know, that sounds like a difficult task, but I think it must be possible so that even the servers can't even see the actual information. They can only see whatever is encrypted, and only the beginning and end users can.
Yeah, but maybe they could do that for the messaging, but the liberty.me is mostly like a social media platform. I mean, I don't know if that's what you're meaning, but it'd be more akin to like Facebook versus like an email thing.
Well, right, that's what I mean, though. Even Facebook should, again, I don't know if this is really a feasible task yet, but if possible, it would be amazing if Facebook could encrypt things such that the only people who can see the actual information are the people that you allow to do that. Now, even then, it might be a little difficult because, I mean, somebody could just request to be your friend, and you could say, yeah, sure, and then they have all your information, and then they can share it with other people, or they could be somebody other than who they say they are. So you're right. With social media, when you're giving information to tons and tons of people, it's really hard to be secure anyway, even if it was encrypted, because there would be so many end users. But yeah, maybe it is. Maybe just email would be the way to do that. And yeah, it would be nice. I mean, there are ways. You could just encrypt the text so that Google doesn't even know that your email is encrypted. They just send the text across, and then the beginning and end users decrypt it. There's tons of people who encrypt their email that way. So that's a start, but it would be nice if Google had all of that in there by default. And like I said, I thought that Yahoo was going in that direction, but I guess we'll have to see more in the future.
I mean, right at the beginning of the article, it says that Yahoo's thing makes it so it's the same as Gmail in 2010.
Right. So yeah, I guess it wasn't quite what I thought it was. This is the last little bit of that forum post. Snowden emphasizes encryption being effective against NSA/government surveillance, which is true. It generally, as long as the encryption is legit, then yeah, it would be effective because it's probably not worth it for them to brute force it. But the post continues. Suddenly, the Heartbleed issue comes out, leaking user credentials like passwords and the encryption keys themselves, and the NSA denies knowledge. And that's where the problem is. We have all of this encryption and SSL and everything, but that encryption is no good if the government has the private keys. It's no good at all. So if your encryption is legit, use it and keep it and always use it. Which, Tim, that's another thing. We use encryption now and then, but I don't know, I'm thinking we should, even when we don't think we need it, it's probably a good idea to use it anyway. Just because you never know what they're going to think about or care about.
I mean, if you're ever saying anything sensitive, that's why if we're ever talking I don't ever send it over like normal. Even some of the apps, again, I don't know how secure it is, but we haven't been arrested yet. Not that we really talk about stuff that's that dangerous on it, but anytime there's any kind of like more sensitive information, Daniel and I will usually use an app called SureSpot. We went through a couple apps before we got to that one, and all of them sounded like they'd be more secure, but then we couldn't get them to work because whenever you're sending like the public key to the other person, we weren't able to get that to work. So we ended up just using SureSpot, which I don't entirely remember, but I think it's just, it goes to a central server, right, Daniel?
Yeah, that's the thing. We were hoping to use the normal SMS system and that we could just encrypt the plain text and send plain text just as a normal text message. Well, encrypted plain text. But yeah, like we said, we were having some issues. So we ended up using, it's called SureSpot. And you're right, it does go through a server. It is encrypted, like we were saying, like we were hoping that Yahoo was. It is encrypted the entire way, and the server themselves can't read it or anything like that. So yeah, that it is pretty nice. Again, I wish we could have used the regular SMS, but still, this works just as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to you if you want to trust SureSpot, because, I mean, there's a possibility that maybe they can read it, and like at that point, the encryption isn't in your hands. But yeah, if you're putting out any kind of sensitive information out online or anything like that, if you want to send a message, definitely use PGP. Try to figure out how to use that. There's tutorials on YouTube and all over the internet, and it's not too incredibly hard. Just plain PGP without trying to put it in a program isn't that difficult. You just send the person your public key, they send you theirs, and send messages back and forth. And you just decrypt it, and then just write down your password for decrypting things someplace. Don't put it on your computer. And should probably be pretty good. That hasn't been...
Yeah, that's different than SSL. Well, I mean, the encryption is sort of the same, but it doesn't use SSL.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't comparing it. I'm saying like that. I mean, maybe sometime in the future they'll find something wrong with PGP, but
well, that's
so
true.
Far they haven't.
One last thing, another quick plug. I just heard today it's called TOX, talks.im. There's encrypted messaging and encrypted video chat, which is actually pretty cool. I have not had a ton of time to look into it. I don't know how it works. I never downloaded it. I never used it. I just wanted to mention it just real quick before we close, just in case anybody is interested or wants to look into that. It's tox.im. I don't know. See what it's like. Maybe we'll talk about it on another show if I start using it and find it to be useful. So, you're listening to the YMB and BTC podcast. We need your help. First of all, we'd love it if you could check out our website, YMBandBTC.com. There you can find donation addresses for every single article and episode, and we'd love it if you could make use of those. We could also use some fans and followers, so if you're willing, please visit Facebook or Twitter.com/YMBandBTC. Lastly, remember to subscribe to the show. You can do that on iTunes or sign up on our website to receive email updates. Thanks for your support. I'm here with Gweedo. He is the... should I call you the founder, the administrator of APIcoin?
I'm everything right now. I'm the single employee.
Awesome. All right. That's exciting. Well, yeah, I'm glad to have you. And I guess instead of trying to explain everything myself, I'll just let you get started. Just tell us what APIcoin is, how it works, and what your goal is.
Okay. So with APIcoin, I really started out with a different project, and I was going to create something, and I realized there was this kind of giant void for a really high level API in the community. And so I started working on something that I thought would just benefit me, and I would put it on like a VPS or something to help me in this side project I was working on at the time. And I realized when I kept Google searching and just looking at the forums that this could be something more than that. And I started reaching out to a couple people in the community that are more or less programmers, asking them about what they would want in a high-level API. And I started incorporating that. And basically, this is just our main focus is on making information from the blockchain very easy and accessible. And this is something that's not really done. I mean, you have places like blockchain.info, you have places like Coinbase, but these APIs are like the last thing on their roadmap. They're really focused on getting users, making a good UX, and doing front-end work. And so there's not really much attention to their back end. And for blockchain, it hasn't been updated in, I think, for a very long time since I've been using blockchain, and that's been over 3 years, I think. So there was just a need for this. And so right now our main focus and our goals, our long-term goals are making it easy for cold storage wallets. Cold storage wallets are so underrated, I think, in the community. It's something that people talk about. We all say we should be doing it, but in theory, it's great. In production, it's hard. We all don't have $25 million from VCs to create this network of where we could just pick up phones around the world and have people put keys together and stop splitting them and do all crazy stuff with them. And I mean, that doesn't even make sense to me. And I've been in Bitcoin for over 3 years. So that was my main goal, is to make that easy. So a lot of the features you'll see, if you read the docs, are like watch-only wallets. We can get only the unspent outputs. It's really geared towards that cold storage that we should all be using. My second main long-term goal for this is privacy. Who knows when you go to blockchain or you go to Coinbase, who's logging all those API calls? We don't do that. Right now we are logging our access logs, but those don't log any API calls or any parameters, and that's going to be going away soon. Right now we're in a beta stage. We just launched a month ago, and we have a lot of work to do, and I'm the only employee, so I have a lot of work to do, more or less, from marketing to programming. So right now, those are the two main things. And then later on, we want to make it very secure. Right now, it's one of the most, we take security from APIs from the exchanges that they're using, like digital signatures. Right now I'm working on something where you can validate all our API output and say, hey, that is our API output that we want you to see. Right now, other places, they just give you an IP address and you go, oh, well, if this comes from that IP, then we should trust it. And, that's not the right way to do it. So that's basic overview of what APIcoin.io is.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I have very limited experience with the blockchain API, and it's definitely true. I love having an API. It's nice to be able to just grab information rather than... I've honestly probably never touched Bitcoin D. It's so much easier to just call an API and figure things out. But one issue that I have been concerned about for a while was, well, you're right, it's not the highest quality out there and it hasn't been updated, but also it can be concerning sometimes with centralization because for the most part, I mean, blockchain is probably about the only API people use. I mean, I guess if you use Coinbase as a payment processor or BitPay or something, then it works maybe a little different, but it seems like a ton of people use blockchain, and I don't know if they went bad or if they wanted to mess with people, that's pretty centralized. So it's definitely good to have diversity like this. I mean, you touched on a lot of things, but just specifically, what is the main thing that you would say that makes you different? Why are people going to want to use you instead of the other people?
Because I think in a lot of these companies and a lot of these places that they grow out of control. Let's take blockchain. I know I keep going to them, but they're really our only competitor in this space. That's huge. And I know that if I put a support ticket in, I don't know, I haven't done it lately, but there's been times where I've used their API and I had to put support tickets in. It would go weeks on end without an answer. And I think one thing I want to do is really fix that and be someone that, you can email me at 1 a.m. and because I'm programming, I mean, I was up till 5 a.m. working on server stuff because I'm trying to get a new server that's a lot bigger and faster. So I'm working on all the server stuff, and I get emails all day, and I answer every one of them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Less than an hour if I can, unless I'm like doing something where I can't. But I think that's something that a lot of people don't have, and a lot of companies don't have. And I think that's something that I want to build upon and say, hey, we're a small community. We're still a small community. I mean, I was here when we were really small, and I could tell you where everyone's from. Oh, this one's from there, this one's from there. And I remember like just going and like companies would start to grow in these beginning years, and they'd be like, do you need a lawyer, like to other companies, and they'll share lawyers and stuff. And I kind of want to bring that back to the Bitcoin community, because I think we've been divided a little bit by so many different things, altcoins, blockchain 2.0, things like that have divided us a little bit. And I think having a good customer service where you can open a support ticket and get an answer quickly or work with me. I'm trying to get Bitcoin ATMs, POS systems, wallets. I want to work with all these people. And I told them, I said, I'm willing to work with you. I'm willing to be wherever you need me to be. You need me to fly to San Francisco? I mean, I have the money. I can do that. You need me to fly? Well, I live in New York. But if you need me in the city to meet for a cup of coffee and discuss how you're going to design your front end and how the back end should really work, I want to be that person that takes the back end and makes it just so easy for anyone to just work with it. And I think that's going to put me above everyone else.
Yeah, that's amazing. And it seems like you have a lot of plans, and I hope that all works out and helps you and helps anyone that uses your service and everything. What about those sort of stages of development? Where are you now in the development, and what are your future plans? Where do you need to go?
So right now we are very much beta. I mean, I'm working on so many cool things that I can't talk about yet. I want to talk about, and that's the entrepreneur's like nightmares. You got so much to talk about, but you can't. Right now, I'm the only person that I own 100% of everything, so it's pretty easy for me to just add things in and fix things. So I think right now it's just getting everything to work. I'm trying to get it, I'm trying to bootstrap it very small. I'm running on very small hardware. As I said, I'm upgrading the hardware because I realize that once we have over a couple of people using it at once, it kind of goes down. So right now, I'm just figuring that stuff out, tuning it. Right now, everything's free. You can just sign up for free and you start using it. And if you contact me, I'll add as many API calls as you need, pretty much, because that's how we're planning on doing payments is based on API calls. So right now, if you want to use it, this would be the best time because we're in beta. And I'm just working on everything. I'm trying out everything. Every day I have the test net up. And I'm just throwing whatever I can at multi-signature, whatever.
That's great.
Sidechains, everything.
How many users do you have right now?
It's kind of hard to say. There's 3 people that I'm in contact with at all times when they use it. But, of course, we have a lot more signed up. And so it's kind of hard to say who's really using it. As I said, we don't log API calls. So I can't really come to a definitive number.
Yeah,
but 3 people are definitely using it.
All right, yeah, that makes sense. One thing with blockchain that is pretty big for them is their wallet service. And I know you talked about cold storage, and that'll be pretty awesome, but do you have any plans to start up any kind of web wallet or anything like that?
So, as you probably all know, or your audience would know, is I'm very much against web wallets. I think they're disgusting, to be honest. I don't like them, but now that we have multi-signatures and we have different ways of doing it where no one has to be that central point of failure, if you want to get your money out at 2 a.m. because of whatever reason, you can without using any service. I would be experimenting with that. I'm actually experimenting with different ways of relaying Bitcoins very securely. I think that's going to be my first step into the wallet business. But right now, I don't want to hold user funds. I've held user funds for other services, and it's something that keeps you up at night, and it's not fun, and it's something I don't want to do. I want this to be a fun adventure for me. And I think right now I have a lot of drive, and I want to get back into the entrepreneurial scene. I've been doing a lot of angel investing in startup Bitcoins and companies, and when I go visit them or I go see them and they're like, oh, look what we're working on, it gets me right in that fire. So I kind of want to have fun for now, and then later on I'll get more serious about that. But I don't see web wallets being something I would never touch, but I think right now we have the tools to do it properly, and so I think I can touch it at a later date.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, trusting other people with your Bitcoins is kind of a hot topic right now, and it's something you absolutely need to be careful with. So yeah, that'll be good to at least take your time and make sure it all gets done right and everything. So yeah, that's awesome. Can you describe the cold storage a little bit more? What exactly are you planning to do with that? How are you going to service that and things like that?
So there's really two parts to cold storage. There's that disconnect, and that's the hardest point, is that disconnect. How do you know when someone pays you when you can't have information online? And Bitcoin D makes that almost impossible. To even get the entire blockchain, you need to run certain commands. You have to have tx index equals 1, which means you save the entire blockchain, which means you have, instead of 20 gigabytes, which I think it is at now, you have 25 or 30 gigabytes, I think, or something like that. So right there, you have people that are just like turned off by it. They don't want that. They don't want to have all these different servers, and then they have to connect them, and that's just a pain in the neck. For ours, I developed a way for people to give me their public Bitcoin address, which you can't do anything with except send money to, and I can look on the blockchain and go, hey, that address popped up in an unconfirmed transaction, and do a callback, which is I then call a URL that you gave me to a script that you have. And that's really where our security comes in, where you can validate that we are the people that we say we are. We're telling you that there's a transaction on the network for this address, and you can validate that it's coming from us, so you're not getting scammed by someone else. And I think that's another part of it, is how do you know that the information is valid? And so that's really where I'm working with. And then another key component is actually consulting with these people and making it easy for them to implement. If you look on APIcoin, the docs, you can actually see that I step-by-step laid out how you should validate every callback you get from us, and what you should do if the callback is invalid, which is obviously forget about the data. But I think those are the three parts that really are hard for people, is the disconnect, and then the legal transaction, if you know it's a legal or a valid transaction, and then how do you differentiate from a legitimate source and a hacker source, we'll say, or a bad actor and a good actor, as they like to say. So I think once we hammer each of those down, and that's why I want to work with people and show them this is what you should be doing. Of course, withdrawing is a little difficult, and I think that's something that we all have to work on as a community, I think Bitcoin made it too easy to just say, let's automate everything. Remember, credit cards aren't automated. There's a lot of parts where there has to be someone at the phone to call and do things. So Bitcoin, if you have to do a little extra work, I think people are scared of that, and I think they should be doing that, because we've seen many services just run on autopilot, and then in a year or so they just disappear because the user or the creator wasn't running them anymore. So
yeah, you're exactly right. There's been quite a bit of that. This is changing gears a little bit, but it's something that we talk about quite a bit on the show. We get into politics and things like that and talk about regulation and things. Are you worried about any of that, or as a company, are you going to have to think about regulation? I mean, I would imagine if you're getting into ATMs and stuff like that, are you going to, I don't know, what do you anticipate? What do you think is going to happen in terms of regulation, or are you just going to probably not be affected by it?
I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but as head of the company, I have to be averse to what's happening in that sector and definitely look at I mean, I'm in New York. They could come get me. Look, they got Charlie Shem. I was talking to Charlie Shem on the forums when he was just like, "Hey, I'm Charlie Shem. Look at me." He was a nobody, and it's something that we all talked about back then. Is what happens if they made Bitcoin illegal or something like that, and that's something that always scared everyone. What if they made it illegal? They come get you at night and you'd be gone. Now, as a company, there's a lot of things I want to do. One of the things I would love to do is a Tor hidden service on my thing. But then I'm scared that if Silk Road 3 or whatever starts using it, I'm going to get picked up. So that automatically acts that. I think right now I'm going to try and play it real safe. Go with what I know is legit. Worst case, I go to a legal counsel and say, hey, can I do this? But I really want to start playing it safe and then wait until I have more funds to start doing those more crazy things where I can have a lawyer come in and say, you can't do that or you can do that. I mean, that's the game that we play today. This is money. You're dealing with real money. Bitcoin isn't fake. It's not something that's made up. It's real money, and you're dealing with it. You have to play by the rules. If you don't want to go to jail.
Right. As much as we hate it sometimes, you're right. There are regulations and laws, and the government can mess with you a lot, even though we don't like it. I have just one last thing for you. It's, again, changing gears a bit, but one thing we like to do with all of our guests is just ask them to tell us a personal story, like related to Bitcoin. It could be really anything. I don't know if you were ever scammed, if you ever, our last guest met somebody pretty famous in the Bitcoin world, anything like that, any interesting story that you just have.
I hate to say people are famous in the Bitcoin world, because I've been here for so long, and it's like everyone's famous now, and I talk to all of them, and they're just regular people like me, so it's kind of hard for me to be like, oh, this guy met this guy. I mean, I talked to so many Bitcoiners that probably would blow your mind or something like that, but I'll give a good story, I guess I could say. I was definitely how I met some people that were I'm not going to say their names because they probably don't want to be involved in this, but a long time ago, before Bitcoin Foundation and all this stuff, there was a little guy named Pirate at 40, and he definitely took a lot of money that would have quadrupled my net worth today, which would be infallible to even think that'd be worth that today. But I definitely got to talk to him on IRC, and he definitely gave me the spiel and was like, hey, I'll make you a lot of money. I was like, I think I was only 21 at the time, or 20. I didn't really know a lot about scams, or I was like, oh, this guy's gonna make me a lot of money. And I knew Nigerian prince scams, but I was never susceptible to. Didn't think I was gonna be susceptible to someone in my own country to come and get my money. But he definitely took me for a ride, and I mean, there's not a day I don't think about if I just kept that money.
So you did end up losing a bit to him?
Oh, I lost a lot. I lost everything, and then I rebuilt it all back. And it was really hard for me to swallow that. And so when people do scams, I really take it personally, because I know what it feels like to wake up and just have that lump in your throat when everyone's like, get your money out of this place now.
Yeah.
And so that's my only story. I'm not that cool in the Bitcoin world. Maybe one day I'll have a good story, like I get to meet someone famous like the Winklevoss twins, but yeah.
It's interesting. That's actually a couple weeks ago we had Jay Shore from Coinable. His story was actually meeting Pirate at 40 in person.
Yeah, he went to the Las Vegas thing.
Yep. So
yeah, because everyone went to the Las Vegas thing and they were like, hey, he's a real guy. And we're like, okay, I was 21 in college. I don't know, I was probably hungover, and I didn't want to fly out to Vegas to meet the guy. Probably couldn't. I was still a very little fish in a big pond.
Yeah, well, at least you made it back eventually, so now
I gotta thank him because he gave me the drive to make it back. The next day, I woke up and I said, you know what? I'm not getting that money back. It's a loss. I can't put it on my capital gains or anything like that. So I was like, or capital losses. So I just got back in the driver's seat and I hustled, and I skipped a whole week of school and made all that money back, and by programming for everyone and anyone and just selling my soul. That's awesome. What you gotta do. And that's why I like being an entrepreneur, is that I get to, I was up at 5 a.m. and I was asleep at 5 a.m. and woke up at 9 a.m. and I'm happy as a clam.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, well, this was Gweedo. He's the founder and CEO and pretty much everything of APIcoin.io. You'll be able to use the API and get information from the blockchain in a pretty awesome way with some cool features. Gweedo, thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next Thursday.